tell a lot about the absence today, and I'll go back to the absence later on. And you also mentioned about the vertical experience in the whole film. But have you thought about the horizontal level of if there are any experiences or if there is anything you wanted to show in the film, like on the horizontal level?
On the horizontal level?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like controversial from what you were saying about the vertical.
Well, it's necessarily both, right? So that's how a three-dimensional environment is created, is with both. And the horizontal level, I think, is articulated in the film with all the kind of static shots that show the infrastructure and map the space, which then kind of replicates the colonial strategies of mapping and surface subdivision, etc. Also talking with my hands. Which we then juxtaposed with other kinds of visual approaches in order to precisely break the horizontal hegemony onto something else. So the horizontal is like the default option that we are existent in yeah.
Particularly around this specific territory, if you look at the politics of horizontal spatiality, what you'll find is mechanisms that kind of slice the territory and make, let's say, certain parts of the territory inaccessible. So in fact, we started by thinking, okay, we have this kind of fragmented notion of horizontal spatiality, what can we do with the vertical as a kind of as a contract with that? And I think that is specific to that territory. There's a horizontality that I think is kind of latent to that specific territory, which is in the West Bank. Yeah, just to contribute to what you're saying. Yeah.
But that's clear with that. And speaking about the absence, Mirna already asked how you can capture, but I'm not asking about how you can capture, but what the absence actually is for you. Is it like a base or what?
I think you can capture absence, but what we, I think, tried to maybe propose is that absence kind of emerges from the assemblage, not from the image itself, but rather from the intersection with connections between images, bodies, and landscapes. And it's not like absence cannot be, shown, cannot be addressed through film. I think you just need a different, strategy that perhaps we tried to explore and kind of experiment with.
But the focus on absence is precisely in relation to the absence of certain bodies in that landscape that in fact was this absence was forced into the landscape through the myth that there is an absence of those bodies, which was incorrect, right? So the displacement of those bodies happened on the premise that there is an absence in the first place. So there is a fictional absence and a real absence, and there's a causality between them.
And I would even say that what we maybe propose is that the absence is made horrifically present. So eventually it's about presence of absence. It's not about just the lack of, either indigenous populations or different infrastructures. It's about making it present through thinking through and with absence. Yeah. So it's
And my last question is again about the absence and this year's theme of Sonic Acts Academy. It's let's say the crisis in the education system, and if there are any other processes to unlock the artistic knowledge. And do you think that absence or a lack of something can help in digging more?
Well, the kind of thing that I've come to realize, and then because my PhD is practice-based, and so I have, and I guess yours is as well, but in a different realm slightly. We're trying to negotiate what it actually means to do practice as research and how that feeds into the other things that are traditionally understood as research. And in my case, there's numerous projects that I've embarked on that are precisely to do with trying to depict not absence but the invisible through visual means. And what ends up happening is that the way that you're then forced, because there's a contradiction between what moving image provides and the kinds of things that I'm trying to depict that are either, operating across enormous durations or are invisible, whereas you have a visual medium that has a static duration. And so the way that it pushes me as a maker to use my imagination towards other kinds of formal strategies, etc., is precisely the kind of way of thinking that if I could then re-articulate and theorize, could be applied more broadly towards how to understand and inhabit those things rather than represent.
Just to add, I basically picking up on that. There's, I think, a process of, producing moving images in our context, but then also writing about them, conceptualizing elements from this product that can then propel the production of more images. So what I always feel that it could be some sort of like a wheel, kind of a balance that is constantly being kind of tipped over, and one needs another. But it's not always like that. So
thank you very much.